Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever felt the sting of being ignored by someone you know loves you? Perhaps you've wondered, how can he love me and yet act as though I don't exist? Today, I want to unravel this mystery, a paradox that speaks not of absence, but of complexity, not of rejection, but of a deeper struggle within. Love is one of the most profound and beautiful emotions, yet it is also incredibly complex. It does not always manifest in predictable or straightforward ways. When we think of love, we often associate it with expressions of care, attention, and affection. However, the truth is that love, particularly in the context of relationships, can often feel paradoxical. It is possible for someone to deeply love another and still behave in ways that seem contradictory to that love. When a man loves, his actions may not always align with what is traditionally expected. Sometimes he may appear distant or unresponsive, leaving the other person questioning the depth or authenticity of his feelings. But this behavior does not necessarily indicate a lack of love. Instead, it highlights the complexity of emotions and the different ways individuals process and express them. Love is not just a feeling, it is a dynamic interaction influenced by personality, upbringing, and even societal expectations. For many men, the way they experience and express love can be shaped by factors that are not immediately visible. Their silence or distance may be a reflection of internal conflicts, external pressures, or simply the way they navigate the intensity of their emotions. Understanding this complexity requires us to look beyond the surface and recognize that love is not a one-size-fits-all experience. Just because someone doesn't express love in the way you expect doesn't mean it isn't there. The challenge lies in understanding and appreciating the unique ways love can show itself, even in the moments when it feels like it's hidden. A man who loves you might sometimes seem distant because his sense of purpose holds a significant place in his life. For many men, love and purpose are deeply intertwined, yet they can sometimes feel like competing priorities. Purpose is not just about ambition or career, it's about the deep-seated need to contribute, achieve, and align with a mission that gives life meaning. This drive often serves as the foundation upon which they build their identity and their relationships. When a man is deeply connected to his purpose, it becomes a lens through which he sees his responsibilities, including his role in a relationship. He may believe that fulfilling his purpose is a crucial way to secure a better future, not just for himself, but for those he loves. His focus on achieving his goals may sometimes lead to moments where he appears to be ignoring or sidelining the relationship. Yet, in his mind, this is not neglected as his way of ensuring that he can provide stability, security, and a sense of direction. This tension between love and purpose is not a sign of diminished feelings, but a reflection of how he prioritizes. He might think, if I can accomplish this, I'll be in a better position to love her the way she deserves. This thought process can lead to temporary withdrawal, as his energy and attention are directed toward the tasks that align with his vision. However, this prioritization can sometimes be misunderstood, especially if it is not communicated clearly. It may feel like he's choosing his goals over the relationship, when in fact his purpose is often rooted in the desire to create a strong foundation for the love he holds dear. To understand his actions, it's essential to recognize that for some men, purpose is not a distraction from love, but a profound expression of it. Sometimes, a man who loves you might seem distant or unresponsive because he is dealing with emotional overwhelm. Love, while beautiful, is a powerful and multifaceted emotion. It can evoke joy, vulnerability, hope, and even fear all at once. For some men, the intensity of these emotions can become difficult to manage, leading them to retreat or appear disconnected. Emotional overwhelm doesn't mean he doesn't care. On the contrary, it often stems from caring so deeply that the weight of those feelings becomes challenging to carry. Men are sometimes conditioned to suppress or downplay their emotions, taught to equate strength with stoicism. As a result, when faced with the complexities of love, they may struggle to navigate the depth of their own feelings. This struggle can manifest as silence or avoidance, not because they don't value the relationship, but because they are unsure of how to express what they're experiencing. In moments of emotional intensity, withdrawal can be a coping mechanism. It allows time to process feelings, regain clarity, and understand the emotions without the pressure of external interaction. This retreat isn't about pushing you away, but about creating space to confront and organize internal conflicts. Understanding this behavior requires patience and empathy. Emotional overwhelm is not a rejection of love. It is often a sign of its depth. By recognizing the underlying reasons for his retreat, you can foster a connection that respects his need to process while assuring him of your understanding and support. When a man loves you but seems to ignore you, it may be rooted in a fear of vulnerability. Love has a way of exposing the deepest parts of ourselves, our hopes, fears, insecurities, and dreams. For many men, this openness can feel daunting. Vulnerability requires a willingness to share feelings and experiences that may leave them feeling exposed or at risk of rejection, judgment, or misunderstanding. This fear is not necessarily a reflection of their trust in you, it is often a reflection of their internal battles. Many men are raised in environments where expressing vulnerability is seen as a weakness, where emotions like fear or sadness are suppressed rather than addressed. Over time, this conditioning can create a protective barrier, making it difficult for them to fully open up even to someone they deeply care about. Ignoring you might be an unconscious way of protecting themselves. If he feels that being vulnerable could lead to emotional pain or a loss of control, his instinct may be to distance himself rather than confront those feelings. This behavior is not a rejection of you, but a response to the internal struggle of balancing love with the perceived risks of being fully transparent. In many cases, the fear of vulnerability comes from a deep desire to be seen as strong, reliable, and capable in the relationship. Ironically, this very desire can lead to behaviors that seem counterintuitive, like withdrawing or avoiding difficult conversations. Understanding this fear requires compassion and patience, as it is not something that can be easily overcome. It takes time for someone to feel safe enough to lower their guard and trust that their vulnerability will be met with acceptance and care. When a man loves you but appears to ignore you, it may be because he processes his emotions in solitude. Unlike some individuals who prefer to discuss their feelings openly and seek external validation, many men find comfort and clarity in internal reflection. For them, stepping back and spending time alone can be a necessary part of understanding and managing their emotions. This tendency is not a sign of detachment or disinterest, but rather a natural way of coping with the complexities of love and life. Love can bring immense joy, but it also introduces challenges, uncertainties, and even fears. To navigate these, a man may need to withdraw temporarily, creating space for introspection. It is during these moments of solitude that he processes what he feels, assesses the relationship, and decides how to move forward. Solitude can also serve as a protective mechanism. When a man feels overwhelmed by emotions or situations, he may instinctively retreat to avoid saying or doing something that could harm the relationship. In his mind, pulling away allows him to think clearly and avoid impulsive actions. While this withdrawal can feel confusing or even hurtful to you, it is often rooted in a desire to handle things responsibly and thoughtfully. This approach to emotional processing is not about shutting you out, but about finding balance within himself. He may feel that by resolving his thoughts privately, he can return to the relationship with greater clarity, strength, and a renewed sense of commitment. Recognizing and respecting this need for solitude can help foster a deeper understanding of his behavior and strengthen the bond between you. When a man loves you but seems to ignore you, it may be because he is uncertain about your expectations. Love is a powerful and intricate emotion, but navigating it can become complicated when there is a lack of clarity about what the other person needs or wants. This uncertainty can lead to hesitation, withdrawal, or even silence as he tries to avoid making mistakes or disappointing you. Men often feel a deep desire to meet the expectations of the person they love. However, if those expectations are unclear, unspoken, or constantly shifting, it can create a sense of confusion and doubt. He may wonder, am I enough, or am I doing what she needs me to do? These unanswered questions can become a source of internal conflict, causing him to step back rather than risk failing to meet your needs. This hesitation is not a lack of love, but a reflection of his effort to get it right. He may feel overwhelmed by the pressure to understand your desires without clear communication, leading to a sense of paralysis. In his mind, ignoring you might seem safer than taking an action that could lead to misunderstanding or disappointment. Furthermore, some men struggle with interpreting emotional or nonverbal cues. If your expectations are hinted at rather than directly expressed, he might miss them entirely, leaving him feeling even more unsure about how to proceed. This gap in understanding can create distance, not because he doesn't care, but because he is afraid of failing to meet your needs in the way you hoped for. Addressing this requires open and honest communication. When expectations are clear and mutual understanding is fostered, the space for doubt diminishes, allowing love to flow more freely without the barriers of uncertainty. When a man loves you but seems to ignore you, it may be because of a protective instinct at work. Love, for many men, is closely tied to the desire to shield and safeguard the person they care about. However, this protective instinct can sometimes lead to behaviors that appear contradictory, like withdrawal or silence. What might feel like distance to you is in his mind an effort to protect the relationship or spare you from his internal struggles. Men often internalize the belief that they need to be strong and composed in the face of challenges. If he is going through a difficult time or facing personal battles, he may withdraw because he doesn't want to burden you with his struggles. He might think, "I don't want her to see me like this," or "I need to fix this on my own before I can be fully present for her." By pulling away, he believes he is shielding you from worry, stress, or the weight of his emotions. This protective instinct is not limited to shielding you from his challenges. It can also arise when he senses tension or conflict in the relationship. He may think that stepping back is a way to de-escalate the situation or give both of you time to reflect. While his intention is to create a healthier dynamic, the lack of communication during these moments can leave you feeling confused or neglected. Additionally, a man who deeply loves you may feel a profound responsibility for the relationship's well-being. If he perceives himself as falling short in any way, he might retreat out of fear that his shortcomings could harm what you've built together. In his mind, withdrawing gives him the space to recalibrate and ensure he can be the partner you deserve. Understanding this behavior means recognizing that his silence is not a rejection of love, but an expression of care in a way that may be difficult to see. By giving him room to process and reassuring him that love does not require perfection, you can create an environment where his protective instincts enhance rather than complicate the relationship. When a man loves you but seems to ignore you, the behavior might stem from cultural conditioning that has shaped how he understands and expresses emotions. In many societies, men are often taught from an early age that showing vulnerability or openly discussing feelings is a sign of weakness. Instead, they are encouraged to be stoic, self-reliant, and composed, even in the most emotionally charged situations. Over time, this conditioning becomes deeply ingrained, influencing how they navigate relationships and express love. For such a man, ignoring you is not about a lack of affection or commitment. Rather, it reflects an internal conflict between what he feels and what he has been taught about how to behave. If he has been raised in an environment where emotional expression was discouraged, he might struggle to translate his feelings into words or actions that resonate with you. As a result, his love may manifest in indirect ways or seem absent during moments when emotional connection is most needed. This cultural framework often pressures men to prioritize strength and stability over emotional openness. He might feel that showing too much emotion could jeopardize his role as a provider, protector, or leader in the relationship. In his mind, ignoring you or stepping back from emotionally charged situations could be a way of preserving his perceived role or maintaining control over his feelings. Furthermore, the fear of being misunderstood or judged for expressing emotions can lead to avoidance. He may worry that his vulnerability might not be received with understanding, which could result in embarrassment or feelings of inadequacy. To avoid this discomfort, he might choose silence or withdrawal, even when his love for you is unwavering. To bridge this gap, patience and empathy are essential. Cultural conditioning does not change overnight, but through understanding and open communication, you can create a space where he feels safe enough to break free from those constraints. By fostering an environment where emotional expression is encouraged and valued, his love can become more visible, even in the face of deeply ingrained societal norms. When a man loves you but appears to ignore you, it may be because on some level he is subconsciously testing the strength of the relationship. This testing is not always a deliberate or calculated act, but rather an internal process that arises from a combination of insecurities, uncertainties, and a desire to understand the depth of your commitment. Love is one of the most vulnerable places a person can find themselves, and for a man, this vulnerability can lead to behaviors that might seem confused or contradictory. A man might pull back or create distance to observe how the relationship responds to that space. He could be trying to determine whether the bond you share can withstand challenges, misunderstandings, or periods of disconnection. This behavior is not necessarily about doubting your love, but rather about understanding its resilience. In his mind, he might be asking questions like, will she still care if I'm not always available? Or how does this relationship hold up under pressure? This testing can also stem from his own fears or insecurities. If he has experienced heartbreak or disappointment in the past, he may unconsciously create scenarios that allow him to gauge whether this relationship is different. He might distance himself to see if you will come closer or if the bond will weaken. This is not about manipulation, it's about seeking reassurance in a way that he might not even fully recognize. Additionally, this kind of testing often reflects a desire for depth and authenticity. A man who values meaningful connections might want to ensure that the relationship is built on mutual understanding and genuine commitment rather than surface-level interactions. By observing how you respond to his moments of withdrawal, he may be trying to determine whether the love you share is strong enough to endure the natural ebbs and flows of life. While this behavior can be frustrating or even hurtful, it is important to recognize that it often comes from a place of love and vulnerability. His withdrawal is not about pushing you away permanently, but about seeking confirmation that the relationship is as strong as he hopes it to be. With open communication and mutual reassurance, these moments of testing can become opportunities to strengthen the connection rather than weaken it. When a man loves you but seems to ignore you, it may be because he is prioritizing self-growth. Love, while deeply important, does not exist in isolation. A healthy relationship often requires both partners to be the best versions of themselves. For many men, the desire to be loved is intricately tied to the need to feel competent, strong and capable, not just in their relationship, but also in their personal pursuits. If a man is pulling back, it could be because he feels the need to invest time and energy into his own development, believing that only by improving himself can he truly give you the love and attention you deserve. This self-growth could manifest in various forms, whether it's focusing on his career, enhancing his emotional intelligence, pursuing fitness goals, or addressing past traumas. These pursuits, while essential for his personal development, may require a period of withdrawal as he works through the challenges and growth necessary to improve his life. In his mind, he might think, I need to be whole first before I can give my best to this relationship. His retreat might be a reflection of his desire to become a better partner, believing that he must grow individually to be more capable of nurturing and supporting the relationship. This can be particularly difficult to understand because the act of withdrawing can feel like rejection. However, his love for you might remain unwavering even if it's not as outwardly visible. His focus on self-growth is not about distancing himself from you, but about preparing himself to offer more stability, more emotional availability, more commitment once he has worked through his own growth. The challenge, of course, lies in how this need for self-improvement is communicated. If a man feels that his personal growth is not understood or appreciated, it may lead to further withdrawal, as he might fear being misunderstood. During these moments, it's crucial for both partners to have open conversations about the balance between personal development and relationship needs. When both sides recognize and honor the need for growth, whether individually or together, the relationship can evolve into something even stronger. When a man loves you but appears to ignore you, it may be because he is struggling with a deep-seated fear of rejection. Even the most confident individuals can harbor insecurities, especially in relationships where vulnerability is at the forefront. For some men, the love they feel for someone is so intense and meaningful that they fear it might not be reciprocated in the way they hope. This fear can create a protective barrier, leading him to distance himself. Not because he no longer cares, but because he is afraid of opening himself up and facing the pain of potential rejection. This fear isn't always conscious or logical, but it can be deeply rooted in past experiences. Perhaps he's been hurt before, whether in previous relationships, childhood experiences, or even moments of unspoken emotional trauma. These past wounds can leave him with the belief that love might be fleeting, or that his feelings may not be fully returned. The fear of rejection can be so overwhelming that it drives him to protect himself by withdrawing rather than exposing his heart to the possibility of hurt. In his mind, distancing himself might feel safer than expressing affection or emotional need. By pulling back, he can avoid the perceived risk of rejection and protect his own emotional well-being. However, this protective instinct can often backfire, creating tension and confusion in the relationship. His behavior might be misinterpreted as disinterest or a lack of love, but in truth, It is his way of guarding against the emotional vulnerability that love naturally demands. Additionally, the fear of rejection can be compounded by an internal conflict between wanting to express love and the fear of overwhelming or burdening. He might wonder, what if she doesn't feel the same way? Or what if my love isn't enough? This inner turmoil can create a sense of emotional paralysis, causing him to retreat rather than risk experiencing the pain of rejection. Overcoming this fear requires patience, understanding, and open communication. When both partners can acknowledge that fear of rejection is a shared experience, it offers mutual support and reassurance. His love may be expressed in actions rather than words during these moments of uncertainty, but the foundation of his feelings remains strong. By offering empathy and creating a safe space for vulnerability, the relationship can gradually move past the fear and grow stronger in the process. When a man loves you but seems to ignore you, it might be because he feels misunderstood or not truly seen for who he is. In many relationships, there is an inherent desire for validation and recognition, but this can often go unspoken or unmet. Men, like anyone else, want to feel appreciated for who they are, not just for what they can provide or how they fit into someone else's vision of the ideal partner. If a man feels that his efforts or his true self are not being acknowledged or fully understood, he might retreat as a way of coping with the frustration and emotional disconnect that arises from feeling invisible. This feeling of being misunderstood can stem from differences in communication styles, emotional needs, or even personal values. If there is a mismatch in how you both express affection, or if your partner's love language is different from your own, it can create a gap in understanding that makes him feel unseen. For example, if a man is expressing his love through actions, working hard to provide, taking on responsibilities, or showing care through practical gestures, but those actions are not recognized, he may begin to feel that his love is not valued in the way he intended. Sometimes the disconnect comes from the assumption that love should be expressed in certain ways. If your expectations differ from how he expresses himself, he might begin to question whether his love is enough or if it is truly appreciated. The frustration that comes from this misunderstanding can cause him to withdraw, not because he no longer cares, but because he feels like his efforts are being overlooked or misinterpreted. Furthermore, men often face societal pressures to fit certain molds, whether it's the expectation to be strong, successful, or emotionally reserved. These pressures can lead to feelings of inadequacy if their authentic selves are not seen or understood in their relationships. If a man feels that he has to constantly mask who he truly is in order to be loved or accepted, it can lead to emotional exhaustion, causing him to retreat into silence. Acknowledging that a person's efforts in love are deeply tied to their need for recognition and understanding is crucial in overcoming this issue. When a man feels truly seen for who he is, and when his efforts are recognized in ways that speak to his own values, he is more likely to open up and engage fully in the relationship. It's about creating a space where both partners can be themselves without fear of being judged or misunderstood, allowing love to be expressed in ways that resonate with both individuals. When a man loves you but seems to ignore you, it could be because he is facing a challenge with emotional expression. While love is often seen as an open and expressive emotion, many men struggle with articulating their feelings in ways that align with societal expectations of communication. For some men, emotional expression is not as instinctive or natural as it might be for others. Instead of verbally expressing love or affection, they might demonstrate it through actions, yet this can be overlooked if the other person expects love to be shown through words or gestures that align with their own preferences. For these men, emotional expression often feels like a vulnerable act, something that requires a certain level of comfort and trust. If they are not accustomed to sharing their feelings openly, they may resort to withdrawal or silence as a way of managing their emotions. He might love you deeply, but when it comes to articulating that love, he may freeze, not because he doesn't want to share it, but because he doesn't know how to communicate it in a way that feels comfortable or authentic to him. Furthermore, some men are taught that expressing emotion, especially love, is a sign of weakness or lack of control. This belief can create inner conflict. He feels the love, but is unsure how to express it without feeling exposed or vulnerable. He may feel that showing emotion will somehow make him less masculine or less in control of the relationship. As a result, he may retreat into silence or appear distant, believing that by not sharing his emotions, he is protecting himself and the integrity of the relationship. The challenge here is that emotional expression is often a learned behavior, and not everyone has been taught how to do it in healthy and productive ways. For a man who loves you but struggles to communicate it, withdrawal or quietness can sometimes be a coping mechanism. He may need time to figure out how to communicate his feelings in a way that doesn't feel threatening or overwhelming to him. It's important to recognize that his silence or perceived neglect may be tied to a lack of skills or comfort in expressing emotions, not a lack of love. Creating an environment that fosters open communication, patience, and understanding is key. Encouraging him to express himself in small, non-threatening ways can help him feel more comfortable sharing his emotions over time. It's important to reassure him that love can be communicated in many forms and that emotional expression doesn't have to fit into one specific mold. When he begins to feel safe and understood, his ability to express his love and connect emotionally will naturally grow. In conclusion, the complexities of love are often misunderstood, and the behaviors that seem to push us away are not always signs of a lack of affection or commitment. A man who loves you but appears to ignore you may be navigating internal battles, fears, insecurities, and societal conditioning that influence how he expresses himself. His withdrawal, silence, or distance is rarely an indication of disinterest, but rather a response to deeper emotional needs, self-growth, or the natural need to protect himself. It is essential to understand that love is not always expressed in the same way, and sometimes the silence is a reflection of the depth of his feelings, not the absence of them. As we navigate relationships, we must remember that empathy, patience, and open communication are the keys to understanding each other's emotional languages. When we approach the complexities of love with compassion, the barriers of miscommunication and emotional withdrawal begin to break down. In the end, love is not a one-way street. It requires both partners to grow, express, and understand each other with mutual respect and care. Only then can a relationship flourish, creating a space where both partners feel seen, heard, and deeply valued.